All right, let's talk about programming. Let's start with programming jobs, the kind of jobs you might get, and then let's talk about characteristics of software. Why doing programming has a certain way of thinking. So, in fact, it's why software is hard. It's hard to do. And then we're going to start on flowcharts. And then we'll run out of time, and thankfully the whole thing will be over until Thursday. This is called the TIOBE. This is an index, the TIOBE Programming Community Index, where they have a certain way. It's kind of like the Nielsen ratings of programming languages, where they have a way of determining what's the most popular programming language this month. And it's like how many jobs are there, how many people are searching for this sort of thing, all that kind of stuff. So what you'll find is in this ranking, I don't know if you can read that well, but Java is up there. Java is the most popular language. People typically get taught Java. You're in a Java class. Who else is in a Java class here? Anyone else in it? Two of you are in a Java class. It's a real solid language to learn. It's an easy language to learn. It's a strongly typed language, which means it has training wheels for newcomers. It helps you if you get into trouble, which is a nice thing in your first language. Interestingly enough, C is the second most popular language. C has been around since the 70s. So almost the whole world is written in C down to the bottom. Unix is written in C. Windows is written in C. In contrast to Java, C is a language for consenting adults. You can make big mistakes. And in fact, most of the security vulnerabilities in the world are based on mistakes people have made when writing in C, the language C. There's a couple other forms of C, like C#, which is more akin to Java. It's a Microsoft language. It's what .NET was designed for. It's what ASP.NET is in there. So if you're a Microsoft platform developer, C# is the way to go. It's a nice language. It's a very nice language. They stole a lot of stuff from Java, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. When someone comes up with a new language, they had better take all of the best parts from all the previous languages. They'd be silly not to. And if you ever see someone try to copyright or patent a language, they don't get it. So languages always build on each other. Some of these more esoteric languages like Ruby is stolen from all of these languages. So in terms of what you want to do, if you want to be a programmer, you have a choice. Which language do I start with? If you're a programmer, though, you really need to get into the idea of I'm going to learn a new language every year. I'm going to learn a new language every couple of years. When you're a professional programmer, you go into a shop and they say, well, we write in Java in this shop. You say, fine, I can do Java. Or they say, we write in C# in this shop. You say, fine, I can write in that. The thing you don't want to do is come off like a jerk and say, oh, I won't ever write in C#. That's a Microsoft language. And that's just silly. It's like saying I won't drive a Chevy truck and I'm a long-haul trucker. I'm going to drive whatever truck you give me, and that's what I do. So start with some of these top ones. Objective-C, does anyone know what that language is for? That language is used for? That is the language of the iPhone. Objective-C is the language that iPhones and Mac applications are written. You can see that's hitting up the charts with a bullet. iPhone programming is hot. If you want to program an Android phone, you usually use Java. Now notice you won't see things on here like HTML. It's not what we're calling a programming language. That's a markup language. HTML is very popular, but it's not the kind of language we're concerned with. You'll also see some stuff on here where JavaScript is on the way down, it says here. A lot of people don't understand how that could be, because there are more people doing web front-end design than there are people doing back-end. don't believe everything you see here. And then some of these things, like TLS, yeah, it's a lot more popular than it used to be, but it's a fraction of a percent. Nobody cares. Ada, back in the 90s, if you wrote the Department of Defense code, you wrote it in Ada. That's all fine. COBOL is probably on here somewhere too. Your dad probably knows COBOL.
Yeah, he knows most of those.
Probably can ask any price he wants. If someone needs a COBOL programmer, then you pay what you get. Now that's the thing. A programmer can get anywhere from $70,000 to $250,000 a year in salary.
Easy.
And if you are starting out as a junior programmer, it's pretty much $70,000. If you went to work at Tektronix, they'd want a 4-year degree, and they want you to have done a CS degree or an engineering degree, but they'd start you out at $70,000 or $90,000 a year. If you're a freelance programmer, the bottom end is about, for an American, is about $50 an hour. That's for someone who already has a portfolio. If you're good at a specific kind of thing, the more specialized you get, the more experience you have in that particular niche, the more you can charge for it. But the riskier it is because there are fewer jobs. So that's the essential trade-off. I can be a guy who does network programming in, I don't know, Perl. And somewhere there's a guy who's got a system written in Perl that depends on network programming and it's broken. The guy who wrote it is gone, and he will pay anything to get that thing fixed and running. And if you can do that kind of work, you can charge $150, $200 an hour and he'll pay. Now if you want an entry-level job that's Main Street, get Java under your belt, get C# under your belt, and you'll get a good career going there. Now the other side of this equation is, because we're in a network world, you are living in a world where there are people who will be very happy to get $5 an hour, and they're really good. They're excellent programmers. There's a place called freelancer.com, a place called odesk.com, where if you put it out there and you say, I want someone who will do a website for me and I want it written in this language and it has to do this, you'll get probably 30 bids for people who have already done that and are willing to do that for $5 an hour. And they're good, they'll turn it around. So the flip side of being a programmer is, if all you are is a programmer, if this is the only thing is your claim to fame, someone hands you a really tight spec and you give them that code, you are competing against hundreds of thousands of people who have very little bills. They don't have the cash flow issues we do here in the United States. So how do you deal with that? We have to be better than that, first of all. But not so much in how fast can you code or whether you know the language. You have to be better at understanding the problem and at coming up with better solutions. So that's the kind of the business systems analyst stuff we've talked about here. Being able to understand how people work, what the business is like, being able to talk to people, and then being able to turn that into a solution. If you can also program, you're hot stuff. But the other side of it is, if you know how to come up with really cool solutions, if someone needs a really neat website and you have a really cool idea, you can hire a guy for $5 an hour to crank out the code for you. So if you're thinking like an entrepreneur, if you're thinking like, I make systems, and I have really cool ideas, and then the coding is just a detail. It's not just a detail, it's a lot of work. But the plus side is there are hundreds of thousands of people around the planet who are willing, well not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people around the planet who are willing to help you at dirt cheap prices. Oh, if you want to go into programming, that's really cool. Some people are good at it, some people aren't, but it's just like anything else. I think everybody can do it. And trying your hand at programming gives you a way of thinking that you wouldn't get any other way. It's like everyone ought to try get into this line of work, you can start at the bottom end. Let's take a look at the sequence of jobs for this sort of thing. Staying on the career side. So just like in most technical jobs, you can start with a technician level thing. This is a job where you don't have a lot of experience, where you don't have a lot of portfolio pieces, but you run tests. You start to write tests. This is a skill all on its own. Being the kind of person who can think of what can go wrong and make sure it happens. There's another level. This is where there's a lot of activity. These days, a system administrator. These are the people that keeps machines running, that make sure that things happen, that deploy systems. It used to be that these guys were kind of, well, I won't say. These days, this is a big deal. And you'll see a jargon thing called DevOps, where you're partially a developer and you're also responsible for operations. Why? Because so many machines are on the cloud now. Used to be the sysadmin had to be able to schlep pieces of hardware into a room and to make sure things were wired up correctly. These days, with the cloud, people are creating machines and throwing them away. The big deal is how do you control big sets of machines? Big sets, thousands of servers all at once. How do you manage a system like that? How do you keep an eye on it? Well, that sort of thing requires scripting, which is a particular kind of programming, particularly in the network arena. You need to understand how networks are laid together and how to write code that orchestrates servers coming up and down and keeping an eye on them. It's really cool work. Traditionally, there was a division between programmers and analysts. We've already run into the phrase analyst before, business systems analyst. That's someone who understands business and understands computers. We drew the distinction between a business systems analyst and a DBA, a database administrator. That distinction is still the case when you're writing software. There are some people who are just analysts and they figure out what's going on and they write a spec. They draw diagrams and then they hand it to someone who knows the language and actually writes it. It's less and less common in a small company. In large companies, you'll still see them, where the people who know the business aren't necessarily the people who write the code. You'll still see plenty of people, very smart people, very well-paid people, who don't want to know anything about the customer. Their thing is about making machines that work really well. So they just want to be programmers. And typically they get heavily invested in a particular language. I happen to be building systems out of Ruby now. And you find people who are just fanatical about Ruby. And they think that no other language is worth their time. And if you want to know something about the details of these languages, you talk to that guy. If Ruby fought, in fact, 3 years ago, no one was hiring Ruby programmers. These guys were all on the street drinking beer and arguing about Ruby. Now, thankfully, these days, there's a lot of jobs for people like this, and they're all employed. But if you're that kind of person, you only know a little tiny piece of a little tiny language, you'll be out of a job occasionally, as the cycles come and go. If you're a programmer analyst, though, if you can do both things, not only are you able to move among the people with the money easier, but also you have a job that cannot be outsourced. You cannot outsource something to a guy at the other end of a website for $5 an hour when it means he's got to move through a company, interview people, understand how things work and what their customers want. So this is where I would head you towards. If you want to be a programmer, think of it like a BSA. I'm going to understand the situation, I'm going to understand the customer, and then I'm going to build a machine that solves that problem. And if I need to, I'll hire a bunch of guys at $5 an hour to fill in the blanks. Now there's a layer above programmer called software engineer. So, can someone define what an engineer is for me? Not the guy who drives a train.
Somebody who designs and constructs something,
Designs and constructs
something.
something, yeah. What did you say, Kevin?
I just said that somebody,
So have you ever worked with heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems? Anyone have you ever been in a building that has steam heat? Yes.
Well, my little apartment.
That's great. Does anyone ever listen to the radio anymore? Anyone listen to the radio? That's great. Okay, so these are professional. You ever drive on a road? Yeah, you drive on a road. You ever walk into a building? Yeah, you walk into a building. You ever get into an elevator and you notice there's a certificate up on the elevator that says this is safe?
yeah,
You can ride in this? There are people who sign off on systems like that. There are people who sign off on systems that kill people when they fail. And those guys are typically engineers or architects. So, the word engineer came into our profession in the late 1800s when a school blew up. A steam boiler blew up. And after that, after a whole bunch of kids died, if you did steam pipes, you had to get a license.
Boilermakers.
You had to pass a test, you had to prove you knew what you were talking about, and you had to do your work according to an accepted body of knowledge. It's the same thing now. If you make buildings, if anyone is going to remodel your home and make structural changes, you need to get someone who is a professional engineer to sign off on the plans. And that means they have analyzed your house, that they know that because of their experience, your house is not going to fall down and kill anybody. It's not going to burn up easily. And they're putting their professional reputation on the line. Those are classical engineers. Those are professional engineers. Software doesn't have anything like that yet. Software isn't there yet. Because software is too young. Software is only 40 years old, 50 years old, something like that. People have been making buildings for thousands of years. So if you find yourself talking to someone who's calling themselves a system software engineer, they're not necessarily a professional engineer. That means they're not licensed. But they have proven that they have the right skills. There are tests you can take to make sure that you have proven you have the right skill. They perform their work in accordance to a body of knowledge, set of accepted practices, and they're willing to stake their reputation on their work. Now, it won't be too much longer before software fails in a spectacular way, and the news media finally understands that someone wrote this code and it killed a whole bunch of school kids. At which point, every programmer is going to have to be licensed. And frankly, I hope that the industry figures that out before the government does. Because software is not the kind of thing you can license at this point. It's not like dentistry. There are too many things going on in software that make it much more difficult than almost everything else you've ever done. So let's take a break. And the next thing we'll talk about is why software is different from other lines of work and what we can do about it.
It's easier to get in and modify as well.